Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today we are going to be diving into the fascinating world of the human retina.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We'll be exploring its anatomy and all of the cells that make it work,
Wow.
and ultimately understanding how we perceive light and color.
Yeah, it's funny. The retina, it's often called the queen of the eye.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's because every other part of your eye, the cornea, lens, iris, all of that stuff, they exist just to focus light onto this one thin layer of tissue at the back.
Right.
And what makes the retina even more intriguing is that it's the only place in your body where doctors can directly observe
Oh, wow.
your arterioles.
Okay.
The tiny branches of arteries.
Yeah?
They do this by using an ophthalmoscope,
Okay.
and it reveals a lot about your overall health.
Wow, that's like a secret health checkup hidden in plain sight. But let's get back to the structure of this queen.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple sheet of cells, right?
You're right.
It must be pretty complex.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The retina is incredibly intricate, organized into 10 distinct layers.
10 layers.
10 layers.
Wow.
Imagine a perfectly layered cake.
I like that analogy.
Each layer has its own specific job to do, contributing to the overall masterpiece.
So which layer would be the star ingredient of this retinal cake?
Well, in this case, the star would have to be the fovea centralis.
Okay.
It's a tiny pit
Okay.
right in the center of the retina,
Yeah.
and it's responsible for your sharpest, most detailed vision.
Okay.
So think about when you're looking directly at something,
Right.
all the fine details you see, that's thanks to the fovea.
Small but mighty.
Exactly.
Packed with power.
Yeah.
So speaking of power,
Right.
what are the key players here?
Right.
What are the cells that make all this visual magic happen?
Well, let's start with the pigment cells.
Okay.
Think of them as the stagehands in a theater.
Oh.
They're quietly working behind the scenes,
Gotcha.
absorbing stray light.
Oh, so they prevent blurring.
Yeah, preventing it from
Right.
blurring your vision, ensuring you get that crisp, clear image.
So they're like blackout curtains in a theater,
Exactly.
making sure the spotlight is focused where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Now, what about the stars of the show?
Right.
The ones that are actually capturing the light.
That would be the photoreceptors,
Okay.
the rods and cones.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, they're the real light catchers.
Yeah.
Transforming photons into electrical signals your brain can understand.
It's like having both night vision goggles and a high-definition camera built into your eyes.
Exactly.
It's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so the rods are incredibly sensitive
Okay.
and allow you to see in low light,
Mm-hmm.
but they only see in shades of gray.
Right, like night vision goggles.
Exactly like night vision goggles.
Yeah.
Cones, on the other hand,
Yeah.
they need more light, but they allow you to see in vibrant color
Gotcha.
and with sharp detail.
Okay, so it's like the rods are great for navigating a dark room, while the cones help you to appreciate a beautiful sunset.
Precisely.
So, but how do these photoreceptors actually capture the light?
Right.
I mean, what's going on inside those cells?
Well, both rods and cones have a similar structure,
Yeah.
but the key difference lies in their outer segments.
Okay.
Imagine them as stacks of discs,
Right.
like a miniature library
Okay.
loaded with light-sensitive pigments
Interesting.
called rhodopsin in rods and iodopsin in cones.
So these pigments are like the books in this library.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
Each containing the information to decipher light.
And each type of cone has a different iodopsin, right?
Yeah.
For different wavelengths.
Exactly. So each type of cone has a different iodopsin pigment sensitive to a specific range of wavelength,
Okay.
which allows you to see different colors.
So it's like each cone is tuned to a different channel on the color spectrum.
That's a good way to put it.
But are rods and cones working solo in this retinal theater?
They're not.
They've got a supporting cast.
Oh, there's definitely a supporting.
Who else is there?
You've got horizontal cells, amacrine cells, and bipolar cells.
Okay, what do those do?
They're like the stage managers,
Oh, okay.
the sound technicians,
Right.
and the lighting crew,
Gotcha.
making sure the signals from those photoreceptors are transmitted and refined
Okay.
before they reach the brain.
It sounds like a well-coordinated production with everyone playing their part.
It is.
And this teamwork is actually at the heart of the duplicity theory of vision, right?
That's right. This theory explains how rods and cones work together
Okay.
to provide you with a full range of vision.
Yeah.
It's all about trade-offs.
Okay.
Rods excel in low light,
Right.
but they sacrifice detail and color. Cones, they need more light,
Yeah.
but they deliver the sharp, colorful vision you need during the day.
So it's like having both a flashlight and a spotlight.
Right.
Each tool is good for a different lighting situation.
Exactly.
But this division of labor also explains why someone might experience night blindness.
Exactly. Vitamin A is essential for producing rhodopsin in the rods.
Oh, wow.
If you don't have enough vitamin A, those rods can't function properly.
Gotcha.
And your ability to see in dim light is impaired.
That's a great reminder that what we eat can directly impact our vision.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the light hitting the retina and the photoreceptors capturing it.
Right.
But how does that light actually transform into a signal our brain can understand?
Yeah.
That, to me, seems like real magic.
That magic is called phototransduction.
Okay.
It's a chain reaction, a cascade of events that converts light energy into an electrical signal. It all starts with those light-sensitive pigments
All right.
in the outer segments of the rods and cones.
Okay, so walk me through this cascade.
Okay.
What happens when light hits, let's say, a rhodopsin molecule in a rod?
Well, imagine the rhodopsin molecule like a tiny switch.
Okay.
When a photon of light hits it,
Yeah.
it flips that switch,
Gotcha.
causing a series of changes that activate a molecule called transducin.
Transducin.
Transducin is like a messenger rushing off to activate another molecule called phosphodiesterase.
Phosphodiesterase, that's a mouthful.
It is.
But what does it do?
Well, phosphodiesterase is like a cleanup crew.
Okay.
It breaks down a molecule called cyclic GMP.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The breakdown of cyclic GMP causes sodium channels in the photoreceptor's membrane
Right.
to close.
So the light actually causes things to close down?
It does.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive, but that's the key.
Okay.
This closing of channels leads to hyperpolarization,
Okay.
which is essentially a decrease in the electrical charge of the photoreceptor. And that decrease reduces the release of glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter.
So it's like a chain reaction where light ultimately leads to a decrease in activity.
That's right.
Which then
leads to increased signaling down the line.
Oh, wow.
So that reduction in glutamate release actually activates the bipolar cells. And eventually it triggers signals in the ganglion cells,
Right.
which are the ones sending information to the brain.
So the light indirectly triggers those go signals to the brain.
It does.
By first hitting the pause button on the photoreceptor.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It is pretty cool.
And speaking of adjustments,
Yeah.
how do our eyes handle moving from a bright environment to a dark one?
Right.
Or vice versa?
Yeah, like when you walk into a dark room and you can't see anything.
Yeah, that feeling of momentary blindness.
Yeah.
When you walk into a dark room.
Exactly.
What is happening there?
Our eyes are constantly adapting to different light levels.
Okay.
And that's thanks to a process called dark and light accommodation.
Okay, so let's focus on dark adaptation. What's happening in those first few minutes after you step into that dark room?
Initially, your cones, the ones responsible for daytime vision, they try to compensate by becoming more sensitive. It's like they're straining to see in the dim light.
Oh.
But this only provides a small boost in sensitivity.
Right.
Over the next 20 to 25 minutes, your rods gradually take over.
So there's a handoff.
Yeah, and a hand.
From the daytime crew to the nighttime specialist.
Exactly.
But what's happening to those rods that makes them so much more sensitive in the dark?
Well, a few key things are happening.
Okay.
First, your pupils dilate, allowing more light to enter the eye.
So it's opening the curtains wider to let in more light.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Second, the rhodopsin pigment that was bleached by the bright light needs to regenerate.
So it's like those rhodopsin molecules need to recharge.
You need to recharge.
After being overwhelmed by the sunlight.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And finally, your neural circuitry kicks in.
Okay.
Pooling signals from multiple rods.
Right.
To amplify the signal strength.
It's like teamwork on a neural level.
Exactly.
All working together to make sure you can see in the dark.
That's right.
It's incredible how much our eyes can adapt.
It is.
Going from bright sunlight to detecting a faint glimmer in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about how we perceive color.
Right.
How do we see this vibrant spectrum of colors that makes our world so rich?
That's where those specialized photoreceptors we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
the cones, come back into play.
Okay.
The most widely accepted explanation for color vision is called the trichromatic theory.
Oh, yeah.
Also known as the Young-Helmholtz theory.
Okay, so let's break down this trichromatic theory.
Okay.
What are the three types of cones?
Right.
And how do they work together to create this rainbow of colors that we see?
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to be wowed.
Okay. So according to this theory, you have three types of cones, each containing a different type of iodopsin pigment.
Okay.
And each of those pigments is most sensitive to a specific range of wavelengths. Red, green, and blue light.
So we have red cones, green cones, and blue cones, like the primary colors in a paint set.
Exactly.
But how does that translate into seeing, say, the color yellow or purple?
That's the fascinating part. Different colors of light stimulate those three tone types to varying degrees.
Okay.
For example, yellow light strongly stimulates both red and green cones,
Right.
but only weakly stimulates blue cones.
Got it.
Your brain then receives this specific pattern of cone activation
Right.
and interprets it as the color yellow.
So it's like a specific combination of cone activity creates each unique color we perceive.
It is.
And that makes me wonder about color blindness.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this theory?
Color blindness occurs when one or more of these cone types is either missing or not working properly.
Okay.
The most common type is red-green color blindness,
Right.
where people have difficulty distinguishing between shades of red and green.
Okay.
This usually happens because of a genetic difference
Oh, okay.
affecting either the red or green cone pigments.
It's amazing how this intricate system of cones allows us to experience the world in all its colorful glory.
It really is.
But I'm guessing it's not just about the cones themselves.
Right.
These signals have to travel to the brain for us to truly see and understand what we're looking at.
Absolutely. The journey of visual information doesn't end at the retina.
Right.
It continues along a complex pathway to the brain
Okay.
where those raw signals are processed
Right.
and transformed into your conscious visual experience.
Okay. I'm ready for a guided tour of this visual pathway.
Right.
What are the key stops along the way from the retina to the brain?
The journey begins with the ganglion cells in the retina.
Okay.
They're axons, which are like long cables carrying information, bundled together to form the optic nerve, which exits the back of the eye.
So it's like a fiber optic cable transmitting visual data from the eye to the brain.
Exactly.
And where does this optic nerve lead?
The two optic nerves.
Right. One from each eye.
One from each eye.
Yeah.
They meet at a point called the optic chiasm.
The optic chiasm?
It's the optic chiasm. And here some of the fibers cross over to the opposite side of the brain.
Interesting.
This crossover ensures that information from your left visual field, which is detected by both eyes, is processed in the right side of your brain, and vice versa.
It's fascinating how the visual system is wired to integrate information from both eyes like that.
It is.
So after this crossover at the optic chiasm, where do the signals go next?
From the optic chiasm, the nerve fibers continue as what's called the optic tract.
The optic tract.
The optic tract carrying those visual signals to a relay station in the brain called the lateral geniculate nucleus, or LGN for short.
The LGN.
The LGN.
So the LGN acts as a central processing hub for all this visual information.
It does.
What exactly happens there?
The LGN does more than just relay signals.
Okay.
It filters and organizes the information coming from the retina.
Interesting.
It's like a quality control center.
Right.
Making sure only the most relevant signals are passed on to the next stage.
Interesting. So it's not just a passive relay station. It's actively shaping the information that gets through.
That's right.
And what's the ultimate destination for these visual signals?
The grand finale takes place in the visual cortex, located at the back of your brain in the occipital lobe.
Got it.
The signals first arrive at the primary visual cortex, also known as V1.
V1.
This is where basic features of the visual scene, like edges, lines, and orientations, are extracted.
So V1 is starting to piece together the puzzle of what we're seeing using these fundamental elements.
Exactly.
But what happens beyond the primary visual cortex?
From V1, the information flows to a whole network of higher-level visual areas, known as V2, V3, V4, and so on.
Wow.
Each of these areas specializes in processing different aspects of visual information, such as color, motion, depth, and object recognition.
Right.
It's this incredible teamwork that allows you to perceive the world in all its complexity.
This whole journey from the retina to the brain is mind-blowing.
I know, right?
I never realized how much was going on behind the scenes to allow us to see.
It's amazing.
But there's one thing I'm particularly curious about. The blind spot.
Oh, yeah.
It always seems strange to me that we have this gap in our vision.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
The blind spot corresponds to the optic disc, which is where the optic nerve exits the retina. Since there are no photoreceptors there, it can't detect light.
So there's literally a hole in our visual field.
Yeah, essentially.
But if that's the case, why don't we notice it more often?
Thankfully, our brains are incredible at filling in the gaps.
Wow.
It uses information from the surrounding areas
Okay.
to seamlessly create a complete picture.
Wow.
So we usually don't even realize the blind spot is there.
That's amazing. It's a good reminder that our brain is constantly working to create a cohesive visual experience,
Yeah,
even with these inherent limitations in our eyes.
exactly.
Now, while we're on the topic of limitations,
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered how much of the world we can actually see at any given time.
Yeah.
What's our field of vision like?
Well, your field of vision
Mhm.
refers to the entire area you can see without moving your eyes.
Okay.
It's actually surprisingly wide,
Really?
extending upwards about 50 degrees,
Okay.
inwards about 60 degrees, downwards about 80 degrees,
Wow.
and outwards more than 90 degrees.
Wow. So we have quite a panoramic view. It seems like the main things limiting our field of vision are our own facial features, eyebrows,
Yeah.
nose, and cheeks getting in the way. But are there any other blind spots or areas where our vision might be compromised within this field?
Yes, any blank spot within the field of vision is called a scotoma.
The scotoma.
Yeah, and these can be caused by various things like glaucoma, cataracts, or damage to the optic nerve.
Got it.
The size and location of scotomas can vary depending on the underlying cause.
It's a reminder that our visual system,
Right.
for all its complexity and efficiency,
Oh.
is still delicate and susceptible to problems.
Definitely.
Speaking of using both eyes,
Okay.
I'm curious about binocular vision.
Uh-huh.
How does having two eyes enhance our perception of the world?
Binocular vision is crucial for depth perception, also known as stereoscopic vision.
Right.
Since each eye captures a slightly different image of the world,
Right.
our brain combines these two images to create a three-dimensional representation of what we're seeing.
It's like having two cameras spaced slightly apart.
Right.
That parallax effect allows us to judge distances
Yeah,
and experience the world in all its depth.
exactly.
And I'm guessing this integration of information from both eyes also comes into play in the visual cortex.
Right, absolutely. The visual pathways from both eyes converge in the visual cortex,
Oh.
allowing for this seamless merging of information from the left and right visual fields.
Yeah.
This binocular integration is essential for creating an accurate
Right.
and cohesive perception of the world.
So it's not just about seeing double, it's about seeing better. This incredible visual system,
Yeah,
from the retina to the brain,
right.
is also responsible for our ability to receive color,
Uh-huh.
a topic we touched on earlier.
Right.
Let's delve a bit deeper into that fascinating world.
Okay.
As we discussed, the trichromatic theory explains how three types of cones allow us to perceive a wide range of colors.
That's right.
But it's important to note that this theory doesn't fully explain all aspects of color vision.
Right.
There's more to the
Okay.
story than just those three cone types.
That's right. There's also a neural component to color vision.
Oh, really?
Yeah, involving specialized cells in the retina, the LGN, and the visual cortex
Okay.
that process color information in a more complex way.
So it's not just about the raw signals from the cones.
Right.
It's about how our brain interprets and processes those signals.
Precisely.
Okay.
One key concept in this neural processing of color is the idea of opponent colors.
Opponent colors.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing.
This theory was proposed by Ewald Hering, and it suggests that color vision is based on three opposing pairs of colors.
Three.
Three: red-green, blue-yellow, and black-white.
How can colors be opposed to each other?
Think of it this way. Certain cells in the visual system are excited by one color and inhibited by its opponent.
Oh.
For example, a cell might be excited by red light and inhibited by green light,
Oh,
or vice versa.
got it.
This opponent relationship actually helps to enhance color contrast
Okay.
and create a more vivid visual experience.
So it's like a neural tug of war between opposing colors
Yeah.
shaping our perception of the world.
Exactly.
And where does this opponent processing occur?
Right.
Does it start in the retina?
It actually happens at multiple levels of the visual pathway.
Okay.
In the retina, we have specialized ganglion cells called opponent cells.
Opponent cells.
Opponent cells.
Okay.
These cells have what's called center surround antagonism.
Okay.
This means they're excited by one color in their central receptive field and inhibited by its opponent color in the surrounding area.
So these opponent cells are already creating a kind of color contrast at the level of the retina.
That's right.
What happens further along the pathway in the brain?
In the LGN, there are neurons called parvocellular neurons
Parvocellular neurons.
that are particularly sensitive to color information.
Okay.
These neurons also exhibit opponent process characteristics,
Right.
further refining the color signals.
It sounds like each stage of the visual pathway is adding another layer of color processing,
It is.
making the picture we see even richer and more complex.
Yeah,
Does the visual cortex also play a role in color vision?
absolutely.
What does it do?
The visual cortex contains specialized areas called color blobs.
Color blobs.
Color blobs
Okay.
that are specifically sensitive to color information.
Got it.
These blobs are thought to be crucial for perceiving color contrast
Okay.
and distinguishing between subtle shades of color.
It's truly remarkable how our brains can extract so much information about color from the world around us.
It is.
And of course, this complex system can be disrupted, leading to color blindness.
That's right.
As we mentioned before, color blindness can arise from various causes,
Uh-huh.
but the most common is inherited red-green color blindness.
Right.
This condition affects the ability to differentiate shades of red and green,
Yes.
and typically stems from a genetic difference in the red or green cone pigments.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that our perception of color isn't a given.
Right.
It's a product of this intricate interplay between photoreceptors, neural pathways, and brain processing.
That's right.
As we've seen, this visual system is capable of amazing adaptations,
Yeah.
like dark and light accommodation, to ensure we can see effectively in various lighting conditions.
Exactly. You're exactly right. The visual system is always adjusting and adapting to the changing environment,
Right.
enabling us to perceive the world with remarkable clarity and detail.
It really is amazing.
It is, however, these adaptations also have limits.
Okay.
There are boundaries to what our eyes and brains can do.
So are you saying there are things we might be missing because of how our eyes are structured?
Yeah.
Or how our brains process visual information?
It's certainly something to consider.
Oh.
Our visual experience is ultimately shaped by the limitations and adaptations of this remarkable system.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what we might be missing out there,
It does.
just because of how our eyes work?
It really highlights how our understanding of the retina and the visual system can even inform how we experience art,
Oh, really?
photography,
Wow.
just our everyday lives.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
So knowing how our eyes and brains work together
Right.
to create these images that we see,
Yeah.
it must give us a deeper understanding of why certain visual techniques are so powerful.
Right.
So for example, when I think about paintings,
Yeah.
how does understanding our eyes' perception of color contrast
Right.
play into that?
Well, think about how artists use complementary colors. You know, those opposite each other on the color wheel, like red and green, blue
Yeah.
and orange.
Right.
Placing these colors next to each other creates this visual vibration,
Yeah.
a sense of energy and intensity,
Mm.
because our opponent cells in the retina are being stimulated and inhibited at the same time.
Oh, wow. So that clash that we see is actually happening at the
Yeah.
cellular level in
Yeah.
our eyes.
It is.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What about photography?
Right?
How does knowing about, rods and cones and light sensitivity
Yeah.
impact our understanding of photographic techniques?
Well, photographers are masters of manipulating light and shadow
Right.
to create mood and draw your eye
Yeah.
to specific points in an image.
Okay.
And by understanding how rods and cones respond to different light levels, we can see how those choices impact the emotional weight of a photograph.
Right.
For instance, a dimly lit scene with deep shadows might evoke a sense of mystery or suspense,
Okay.
playing on the sensitivity of our rods.
So it's like having a behind-the-scenes look
Yeah.
at how those visual effects are actually working on our brains.
Yes.
Yeah. This knowledge really does feel like a secret decoder ring for the visual world.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
And even beyond art appreciation,
Right.
this stuff has practical implications, right?
It does.
Like when we're driving at night.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Understanding how our eyes adapt to low light conditions,
yeah.
how long it takes those rods to kick in,
Right.
can make us more aware of potential hazards
Right.
when driving at night.
Yeah, definitely.
Knowing about our blind spots and the limitations of our peripheral vision
Right.
can also help us be more cautious drivers.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that understanding our visual system
Yeah.
isn't just about, abstract knowledge.
Right.
It can actually help us navigate the world more safely.
It can.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from the anatomy of the retina
Right.
to the complexities of color vision and the journey of visual information to the brain. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
So as we wrap up here,
Okay.
I just want to say thank you so much for joining us
Yeah, this has been fun.
and sharing your expertise
Oh, of course.
with us and our listeners.
My pleasure.
We hope everyone enjoyed this deep dive
Yes.
into the fascinating world of the retina,
Me too.
and we hope you learned something new along the way.
I hope so.
Until next time, keep those eyes peeled
Yeah.
and never stop exploring.